Hey, Circle Take listeners, thanks for joining me again. Today we are talking to writer, director, actor Dorie Barton about the first feature film she directed, the 2016 coming-of-age film Girl Flu. So as always, before you listen to the show, here are the Circle Take rules. Rule 1, we always talk about spoilers. Circle Take is a deep dive and no plot turn is sacred, so you have been warned. Rule 2, before you go any further, you should watch this movie. I promise you, while it's possible to listen to this podcast without seeing the film, it's a million times better if you watch the film first. So, before we get started, how to watch Dorie Barton's Girl Flu. As of the recording of this show, it's available on Amazon Prime and Instant Video, iTunes, YouTube Movies, and Google Play. This film is out there and easy to grab, so no excuses. Dorie Barton's Girl Flu. Get a hold of it and give it a watch.
All right, guys, everybody one, please.
Voila.
Straight away, guys. Hold the talking. Here we go.
All right, guys, pictures up.
Pictures up.
Pictures up.
Let's roll sound.
Sound speed.
Dorie Barton interview, take 1.
Mark.
And action.
This is The Circle Take, conversations, insights, and lessons from directors about their first feature film. I'm your host, Jason Schmid. I'm an independent film producer. In 2006, I directed my first feature film, and over my career, I've had a chance to work with dozens of first-time directors, and I continue to find the experience fascinating. My guest today is writer, director, and actor Dorie Barton. As an actor, she's been seen in countless television shows, from daytime dramas and sitcoms to major motion pictures, playing opposite to the likes of Ewan McGregor, Neil Patrick Harris, Bobcat Goldthwait, and many more. She graduated from the California Institute of the Arts with a degree in theater and remains a proud member of the Evidence Room Theater Company in Los Angeles. Dorie's debut feature film as a director is the coming-of-age film Girl Flu, which she also wrote. The film, released in 2016, focuses on a 12-year-old girl called Bird, who has to deal with her first period at the worst possible moment of her life. The Hollywood Reporter recently wrote of the film, quote, Dorie Barton and DP Alice Brooks steer clear of the usual coming-of-age indie stylistic choices, which tend toward the harshly realistic or dreamily lyrical, relying on straightforward compositions and unspectacular LA locations to convey a sense of regular lives. There's a sincerity here, a lack of pretension, and a generosity of spirit that proves infectious, end quote. And I looked this up. Dorie Barton's Girl Flu enjoys an 8.2 star rating on IMDb. Yeah, let me put that in perspective for you, by the way. Other films that also have an 8.2 star rating on IMDb, Academy Award nominated films Room, Wolf of Wall Street, and classics like Big Lebowski, Trainspotting, and Blade Runner.
Wow.
So, Dorie Barton, Girl Flu is keeping good company to be sure. Welcome to The Circle Take.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to talk with you.
Yeah, so congrats on the film. This is one of these, in a lot of ways, sort of like a classic indie film because it's really small. And I think it takes place over the course of basically 4 or 5 days. Yeah. So it's about very few characters. So let's get into the beginning of this story. As a first feature film, what was it about this story that you decided you wanted to make this your first feature film?
It's interesting that you're interested in first-time directors, because I do think that there's a lot of things that are in common, you know? And one of the things that I see as being in common is so many of us have to first make a coming-of-age movie. It's like a rite of passage that we have to go through. I feel like a lot of us need to grow ourselves up, you know, by not just doing the first film, but having the first film about being growing up.
Yeah, you know? It's funny, I mean, a lot of people say about writers that they'll write a script based on what transition they're going through in their own life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So if you're in your early 20s and you're writing your first script, it tends to be this sort of trying to figure out adulthood script, right? And this isn't that. This isn't that at all. So you're very much grown up. Puberty, but you're an adult woman, right? You're not 12.
That's right.
So yes. Puberty and getting your first period was something that happened a long time ago. So what was it about this story that connected to you that you were like, this is the one that I want to, launch my directing career with?
The issues about how we feel about our bodies was something that when I started writing the film became really important to me. And all humans, really, how we all feel about our relationship to our bodies. because it's not quite ourselves, but it is ourselves. And I was going through a period of my life where I was thinking about like when our bodies betray us, basically. And that I knew I wanted to tell a story about that. And so I thought, how far back do I have to go personally before I can remember the first time that I felt that way? And there's no question that it was when I got my first period.
Yeah.
I also remember being like, 5 and like crying over drawings that I made when I was 3 because I'd never be young again, So like, I think even when I was, 11, when I got my first period, like I was already sort of prone to, that kind of drama. Feel like I felt betrayed.
Right.
But I did. And a lot of people, feel that way. So it created a curiosity for me because I immediately started wondering how everybody else felt about it. We don't have a lot of stories. There's a book called "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret." It was written in 1970.
Right.
It's been a while.
And it's the standard bearer still.
It is. It's still,
crazy.
I mean, it's a tremendous book, but it's, quite dated.
A particular experience.
It's a very, and so everybody has particular experiences. And it was cool too, because I not only interviewed women, but I think it was like after my first draft, I realized after I'd like sent it out to some people to get some feedback, one of the pieces of feedback that I got was that it was a little sexist, my script. And I was horrified. I was like, me? Like, what are you talking about? But it was true. In my first draft, the roles that the male characters had were just as thin as most female characters are in scripts about dudes.
Right.
Like
right.
I hadn't taken. It was my first draft. Like
Sure.
whatever. That's fine. But like.
But even finished drafts, like there was the Hidden Figures that recently came out, whereas like all these white male actors who are usually like leads and stuff,
Sure.
were playing these 2D completely flat side characters that were like utterly underwritten, almost intentionally.
I think,
like,
I do feel like that was probably intentional, and I think a little bit of that like is fair.
Well, let me ask you, how long did you
Yeah.
spend working on the script?
The script, I'm gonna say like a year and a half,
Wow.
in terms of like from busting out the outline, right?
Yeah.
And I'm very methodical. The story was very. It's a very organized, as sort of like loose and free form, and liquid as the film feels when you watch it. It's inside. It's
Did you try out different versions of the script and explore different ways to tell that story?
It changed. That part of it changed very little because, like you said, it takes place in it's a week because that's how long you have your period.
So you always kind of knew the structure was going to be that.
Yeah. So it's like
Okay.
each day of her period is a certain thing that she's experiencing or trying to do. So the script, it has the structure sort of like arrived along with the story itself,
Right.
baked together.
Right.
Yeah.
And then moving into production of the film, every aspiring filmmaker wants to know from everyone who's made a movie, how did you get the gig? And obviously, this is a story you wrote, and attaching yourself to a script you wrote is sort of an obvious move for a lot of first-time filmmakers.
Yeah.
How did you move from being an actor, working in the business, who wrote a screenplay and wanted to make this film, to a person who had a budget and a producer to make that happen?
Right. So that took a while, like that, and that took a lot of patience and persistence, of course. But like, I had some help with people, passing the script along and around, and I certainly have my manager, John McGalliard, to thank for supporting me through that. I also really remember one day coming home, and I actually said to my husband, I was like, I am in pre-production right now. Like, I didn't have a dime. I didn't have, I had nothing in place except like me and a script.
So it was more of like a mental mindset.
Well, yeah, I was like, I am now in pre-production. And I started
Right.
talking to people that I knew, like just assuming that I was in pre-production. I storyboarded the film, I shot listed, like I was like, this is happening.
Yeah.
But so my friend and who ended up being one of the producers on the film, Jay Lowy, gave the script to someone he was working with on another film as a producer, gave my script to him. And it just so happened, decided that they, were
They liked it.
interested. Yeah. So David Wilson is that producer. He read it. He read it on a plane, I guess, and like laughed the whole time. And his wife was like, "What are you laughing at?" And he was like, "It's a movie. I think I want to make it."
A producer reading a script on a plane, I think, is the beginning of 50% of films that are made.
It better be. Yeah. Like, when else are you going to read scripts? It's good. You have a captive audience. It's great. It's true.
Yeah. Thank God that producers fly in planes. Otherwise, movies would never get made.
I know.
Let's get through some of like the really basic nuts and bolts here. How many days did you shoot?
It was 19 days.
19 days. And was that 5-day weeks or 6-day weeks?
It was 5-day weeks.
Okay. Because you had a kind of a significant number of night scenes.
Well, we had some night scenes.
So you kind of need those kind of turnaround days.
We needed some splits. The big challenge of this shoot in terms of like time was the fact that so many of our actors were young performers.
Right.
And they have school, they have, rest. So it's like actual boots on the ground,
Right. They have
actors
short
on
days.
set.
Yeah.
Real short days.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And you've got one of your leads is obviously needs the set teacher and the
two
whole
of our,
thing.
yeah, two
and
of the
well,
leads.
and you have the boy too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And what kind of cameras did you settle on using?
We used an Ari.
And was that a choice of the DP or?
Yeah, we made that choice together.
Okay. And how many people were on your crew?
I have no idea. I really don't know.
Was it like a big crew where you walk on like, I feel like I'm on a TV show? Or was it like, wow, where is everybody?
No, it felt big.
Really?
Yeah, one of my friends actually that I had, I asked to come play a small part in the film. We know each other from theater, and so some of the people that have known me the longest were kind of like the most surprised at,
Right. Well,
what I
especially
went out
coming
and
from
did.
the theater.
Yeah, yeah. So she grabs me, like she's on set and she like grabs me by the shoulders and she's like, "Dorie, you have trucks." I was like, "Yeah, I do."
Wow. So was it the kind of shoot where like every department has their own truck? Like camera's got a truck, art department's got a truck. Okay,
I don't know,
so
40 people? Is that,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that seems, in the zone. And how long were your typical days? Were you trying to keep them like in the 12-hour range, or did you have to?
No, we kept
Obviously
everything.
you've got a lot of kids, so that kind of limits you already.
Yeah. But even still, it was not a difficult shoot. There was nothing that was, tremendously physically challenging. And we had one day of, hard rain where we had to make some decisions.
Right. I noticed that because it was funny. It was really, the continuity in that scene was particularly good. And I assume you set up the other side of the shot to rain in the car.
Oh, to rain in the car. Yeah, but the rain itself
but the
in the
particular
film,
scene in the rain just kind of all worked out. And I'm like,
so beautiful.
well, that wasn't in the script. That just happened.
It just happened.
But thematically, it's like, wow.
I know. There's no. I know. Can you
If this was a
imagine?
$40 million film, you would have said,
Be
and I
like,
want
it's
the
gonna
rain here.
I know.
And it just
Isn't
happens.
that cool?
Movie miracles.
I mean, like I said, we had to make some decisions.
Yeah.
But
it all really works out.
Yeah.
And you shot with permits.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some people don't.
No. Yeah. Again, I'm just very mindful of. I like things to be in
It's
order.
low stress too.
It is low stress. Yeah. Once when I was at CalArts, I actually got shot at for being part of a company that didn't have a permit. So
yeah, that'll make you get
a
a permit. Did you do anything in particular to prepare for the experience of directing? And by that I mean, okay, I've never done this before. Is there anything I should did you watch a lot of movies or listen to DVD commentary or just go out and apprentice with some directors that you knew or just shadow somebody or anything like that?
I did a little bit of everything. All of those things. Yeah. As an actor, when I look back on all those sets that I've ever been on, I really realized that the people that I was focused on, what they were doing was what's the director doing, what's the cinematographer doing, talking to the cinematographer about the lenses. I remember my first, philosophical conversation about crossing the line and, everybody on the crew, pitching in and giving their version of it. It was this is fun. So I like acting, but so I feel like I've been preparing my whole career. I started reading books like a madman. I have a tremendously huge stack
Was
of
there
books.
anything that stuck out in particular from a particular book where you're like, ooh, that's a good thing?
I do actually remember because stepping into the visual was, camera placement was something that I had a lot of awareness about that I didn't know. I did have a very good friend of mine, Jim Burkett, film director, who really did a lot of boot camp, these are the lenses. This is, how the camera moves. This is how, just really like breaking
you.
it down for me with me.
That's so sweet.
And, having me, practice shoot on the camera and just like really breaking it down. He was
literal like
tremendously
one-man film school.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
tremendously helpful.
So you did, as a director, you did get into the minutia of like lens choice.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
I love all of that stuff. Is it minutia? I guess so.
Well,
It's-
especially coming from a director whose background is acting. I've worked with a lot of first-time directors and a lot of actor first-time directors.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing that really just does not cross their mind.
Oh, I loved
or
that
kind of gain
tremendously.
understanding of that.
Basically,
and
like
how it can affect the film.
every like new part. One of the things I did do also as like research was I just started watching films with no sound, like just
right.
really really clocking how they covered.
It's an old cinematography trick.
Yeah. And because I was like, I got to learn everything. I felt like I wanted to be like Neo in the Matrix, where he just plugs that thing into the back of his head and he's like, I know jujitsu. Like I wanted to be like, I know cinematography. So yeah, I just kind of downloaded as much information from the world as possible. And every phase of production, pre-production, production, post-production, every new phase I just took on as a new challenge to learn as much as possible about it. And I ended up falling in love with every single phase. So like, I remember the day I fell in love with lenses. Alice Brooks, the DP, took me to, do a lens test, and, we just spent the whole day just shooting, different, speeds and, shutter speeds. And it was just so much.
That's great.
It was a tremendously eye-opening.
So when you walked onto the
moment.
set the first day,
Yeah.
you had some confidence.
Well, yeah, we had a really good pre-production period, and I felt like, also too, we started shooting in the house. This is kind of funny too, having you guys here, because I wrote the film to be able to be shot in my house.
Free location.
Yeah, which makes it really handy for storyboarding and shot listing and practice shooting around the, I could just get up and literally walk it out.
Right.
If I was thinking about it. So I really did have, boards, but also what I was going to say is the first, I believe it was 9 or 10 days, we shot in the house, which basically is like the size of a bit bigger than this house. But it was kind of great because everyone was like crammed in together, and that proximity was fantastic for communication.
Did you have any concerns? And this is kind of more of a post-production question now, moving into post. Is on a smaller film like this, where one location is so central to the story. In this film, it's the house. Yeah. So much of what goes on in this film happens at this one house. Yeah. Was that a concern for you in going into the film and feeling trapped in there? Like, how do I break it out? How do I compartmentalize that house to make it feel like different spaces? Yeah,
and that was also something that, I thought about when I was writing it. Like that was, built into the film itself. It's like, and we don't want to get, fatigue from this place. And so, how to open it up and, get outside or get into different parts of the house. And, conversely, really creating strong emotions around the spaces that we had to spend the most time in, which is, or that, not had to, but that we got to spend the most time in, was Jenny's bedroom, Bird's bedroom, and the bathroom that connects them, that umbilical cord. So a lot of the film is about continuing to come to back,
Did you have that bathroom in mind when you wrote it, that it would be that sort of railroad flat bathroom?
Yeah, that's in my house.
So you knew that was going to be there.
That's part of what the story is
let's
about.
Let's actually listen to that scene, because there's a great little scene that's sort of like base of that whole because a bunch of scenes come back to this bathroom. Yeah. And this is so just to set this up, she's just come home from having been bleeding at school and is mortally embarrassed. And mom is freaking out, doesn't even know what to do, calls a friend to help because she's just like, I can't even handle this by myself. And her friend comes in to plop her down and talk turkey.
Yeah.
And call it what it is. Let's take a listen.
In a comfortable position. That's bullshit. You're just gonna want to squat down and find something to hold on to so you don't fall.
I could fall.
Blah, 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 into vaginal canal, blah. I mean, seriously, who wrote this? A man? Yeah. You were gonna push this thing all the way into your vagina. You understand about vaginas? You know how to find it?
I think so.
Okay, good. So once this is really in there, you're gonna push this thing up like this, out that comes. You're gonna pull this stuff out. This is the only thing that stays in there. You have a little cottontail so you can pull it out again later.
Right. Make sure you don't lose it up there or forget about it.
Wait, I could lose it?
It doesn't get
does.
lost.
How many times do I have to do this?
It depends.
On what?
On the flow.
And how many days?
Like about
Like
5.
8.
Jesus. Okay, well, there's your tampon. Here's your mirror.
Good luck.
It works as a radio play.
It's great, yeah. I love. Well, it's also you can hear that bathroom sound, like they're all sitting on the floor, and it's just like this. It's a great little room that you just keep coming back to.
And our camera operator's like squeezed into the bathtub, like trying to make himself as little as possible.
And that's not a small camera.
It's not a small camera, and it was not a small camera operator.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Chris Cuthbert he played football in college. He's
He's a big guy.
Yeah, he is.
That's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about mistakes. And we get to play a little game. This is the fun part.
Oh God.
It's a little game we like to call "Did That Really Happen?"
I'm nervous.
No. It's super easy.
Okay.
So let me set this up. This is brought to you. Amelia, can I have a little music for this? This just feels like it wants music. This is brought to you by the hive mind that makes up the comment section on IMDb. Since your film is a coming-of-age story, you're going to hear about some mistakes made in other coming-of-age films, possibly submitted to IMDb by its fanatically observant users, or possibly completely made up by our own resident IMDb geek. The rules are simple. We'll listen to the goof, tell us if it really happened or if we're full of it. Ready
Great.
to play?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Featuring the pierced tongue of Evan Rachel Wood and the nightmares of suburban moms for years to follow, your first quote is from the 2003 film 13.
In the scene where Mel is taking Tracy and Evie to Brooks, it's clear that both girls are in the back seat. But when they get to Brooks' house, Tracy gets out the front.
Oh, car seating arrangement continuity. Did it happen?
It could have, and nobody would have cared. It wouldn't have mattered.
Gotta pick one.
Oh, I can't take the. Yes.
You were correct. It did happen. Next one. It made in a long time ago world where teenagers didn't have smartphones and texting, so when they were locked in a room together, they were forced to actually talk to each other. Your next quote comes from the 1985 John Hughes classic, The Breakfast Club.
When Bender is staring at Allison while she bites her nails, he's wearing a white V-neck t-shirt, exposing a part of his chest. In the next shot of him, seconds later, when he is obviously not moved, he's wearing a crew neck t-shirt.
Oh, wardrobe malfunction.
I'll say no.
Right again.
Okay. I have seen that film a lot, but I have no idea about whether he was wearing a V-neck.
Would you even notice?
Maybe. It was kind of hot.
Your final quote is from the 2007 film that makes the bold assertion that even when dorky, awkward teenagers say they're just studying, they're having sex too. In Michael Cera's case here, it's with Ellen Page as the world's snarkiest pregnant teenager, Juno.
When she goes into labor, she shouts, "Thundercats are a go!" An error, or more likely a mixed reference to both the American cartoon series Thundercats Ho! And the British Super Mario Nation series Thunderbirds are go.
So what's the? Did she
It's
just make? Is
a-
it a goof or
it's a
an
mixed, It's a
amalgamation?
mixed pop culture reference.
I'll buy that.
You think that- yeah?
Yeah, I'll buy.
Yeah?
She wrote that. Sure.
3 for 3, a perfect score.
What do I win?
You win your pride.
Excellent.
So obviously, forever, obsessed fans will find the smallest detail. Is there anything like a mistake that cost a shot or cost a setup or in post you're like, oh, that piece of coverage because that thing happened?
Because it was my first film. And yeah, there's often shots that I just never got. Like in almost every scene, I'm like, I would have gone in on that, or like, I should have gotten it from that, or like gotten the, a lot of it was, it was my first film. I'm looking forward to having more ability to think about all of those things. And
do you feel like you saw that on the day, like sitting in front of the monitor on set, being like, oh, we ran out of time on this, and I wanted to get that, or was it more in the editing room where you were like, now that we're assembling this, I see that I missed an opportunity?
It was. I believe that it was largely an intentional situation that was created out of efficiency and a lack of time, so that I designed the coverage for each scene for absolute efficiency and not always to get every shot that I wanted. But then, later you're like, really? Would it have taken that much more time to like pop on a different lens, go in a little bit? I'm like, well, sometimes people have to go to school while you're shooting. Right. So, I have to it's like I have to cut myself slack.
Sure.
In terms of like, my limitations as a director, but also, make sure that I don't forget that, so that when I do move into the second film and I have more time, that I'm more aware of like building myself all the tools that I'm going to want in the edit.
Sure. Was there something in post that came up that was something that you didn't see coming, that was like a problem solved, that was like, oh, now how do we solve that?
There's one problem that I solved in a way that made me really happy. Like I had to create a new beat in a scene to use the only usable footage that I had for this moment, and it forced a new story beat just in that, from using the tools that I had.
Do you want to talk about the beat?
Oh, sure. So Bird and Carlos are talking on the stairs, and it's magic hour. I don't know why I wrote like an 8-page long scene for 2 young actors to be performed
at magic hour.
Magic hour on a really complicated set, because it's on a stairway, and so the shooter's like, standing backwards on the stairs.
And for those who don't know, magic hour, it's called magic hour. It's about 20 minutes in filmmaking life. So it seems like you've got an hour to get that, but you've got about 20 minutes to match the lighting, and then it completely changes.
Right, that's right. Yeah, so it's got to be.
So you've got an 8-pager, and so the solve.
Yeah. Oh, but there was we needed Bird to smile at something that Carlos said. We really needed it to make sense of, where the story went for them as a relationship. And she never, we never got that look on her face, except that the camera was rolling when I was talking to her. And so we found a shot, that had been long since thrown away, where she's looking at me and we're talking to each other, and she's got this beautiful smile on her face. But then she whips her head around, and so to use the shot, we put in church bells ringing that it was, time to go home. I'm like, oh, that's so lovely. It's kind of like when the rain happened. Like, it's raining at the point in the film
where it would be raining.
Thank you. So I love happy accidents, but it's like they're a mixture of preparation and luck and magic. I love it when those things. Yeah. But I do think that that it starts with the preparation, to have that rock solid base of
and also just that DP not cutting the camera right away.
Thank you. Yeah, really nice.
That nice. 20 years ago it was a big deal, but now it's all just ones and zeros. So just let it go, let that magic just catch it.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the film that kills you to watch?
The only thing that genuinely bothers me is when there's a moment where I wish I had gotten just more shots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's just purely the limitation of trying to get it all in 19 days. And
I mean, that seems like me passing the buck off to, time itself.
Well, but there's also, a guy who's made 30 films has an efficiency that they're just they come into this thing and but it's your first time. So that doesn't exist for you. So you're up against all these first time follies and trying to tell an effective story at the same time. So
yeah, I feel good about the shots that I got in the time that I had, and the performances are wonderful. all of the elements that are on the production design's gorgeous. My DP did a beautiful job. Like all the things, are happening. It's I don't feel destroyed by anything, but it's like, again, same kind of thing. I can't, it's something that, I'm like, I just wish I had.
Yeah.
Just wish I had
Yeah. So, that brings us to the circle takes. And this is, the part of the show that ideally is addressing, someone who's about to step into their first experience.
Oh, sweet.
What was the biggest thing that surprised you about the experience?
I would say to a large extent, it unfolded very much how I had imagined it to. There were a few decisions that I had to make, which felt like a very big decision, and the amount of time that I had to make them in felt disproportionate, which I'm sure happens to every director on every film. But that was one of the things where I guess I wasn't surprised by that per se, but it was one of the things that I felt like demanded the most of me, where I had to be so intensely present and like open-minded and creative and problem solving and really fast about it.
Right,
you know?
Make decisions quickly.
The kind of things I'd rather like I'd like to sit with that for 10 minutes. Like, no,
You have 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually 5.
Yeah, make it 3. And it's great. Like finding out what you're made of is a wonderful thing that happens
Yeah.
in filmmaking. Is as I'm sure you experience that feeling of like, oh yeah, I can, I have this in this moment.
Was there anything that you thought like, oh man, I'm not doing that again. I don't like how I handled that, or I don't like, or an approach that you took to solve a problem that you're like, that didn't work out quite well, or something that you look back on, you're like, I'm gonna not do it that way next time.
I have one of the inciting incident happens at a scene in a park, and we had a lot of background actors that day, and they were all young people. And I would say we were probably understaffed to deal with that.
To wrangle all those kids?
To deal with that.
Yeah.
And there was one background actress who just really wanted to be in every shot. And so she was.
Right.
But I'm
So
like,
if you look at the coverage, she's like kind of in 2 places at once.
like 3,
Right.
maybe.
I'm sure the IMDb geeks will point that out to us at some point.
I hope so. But I just like to think of it as like, it's just twins.
Still creepily dressing the same at age 12.
Of course.
Was there anything about it that you thought was easier than you thought it was going to be?
I felt like I had such tremendous support. My producers were incredibly supportive. My crew was tremendously supportive. I do, as a filmmaker who happens to be a woman, I also just want to say, like, I never had a moment of anyone treating me any differently than any other filmmaker would be.
What was the makeup of your crew? Was it because your DP was a woman?
Yep.
Because most film sets I've been on tend
They're
to
dudes.
be very male. There's like
Yeah.
their hair and makeup is a couple of girls, and maybe wardrobe, and there might be 1 or 2 people in the art department, and the rest of the crew is guys, almost across the board. Every once in a while, I'm like, wow, there's some women in the camera crew. And it's like a big deal.
Yeah, it usually, yeah. So our DP is a woman. We had a second AC was a woman. Our sound mixer was a woman. So
Was that happenstance, or did you try and go out of your way to populate the crew with women?
I mean, I think first of all, I think the best people for the jobs had the jobs, which was regardless of
as it should be. Right?
Exactly. But I do, partly because I am a woman, and I think in great part because of the subject matter of the film, there was a general feeling amongst all of us, and that started, with the material and then the producers that came on, and certainly reaching out to a female DP was high. That was high on the list for all of us.
Did you ever think about a female editor?
I met with and hired exactly 1 editor.
Really?
So I don't, that just
So
happened.
was it somebody who was recommended, or somebody you already knew that you trusted?
It was somebody who was recommended, and I saw a piece of theirs that John Thompson, my editor, a film that he had made himself as a filmmaker that I just was like, I want that mind I can gel with. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then what I always like to do is ask your advice. And this is advice for an aspiring director. Maybe they've made a couple of short films. Maybe they went to film school. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they're working in the business. Maybe they're not in the business yet. What advice can you give to someone?
I would say be as prepared as you can possibly be, and to use all of your time that you have actively building for yourself everything that you'll need on the day, because there'll be so many moments where you'll have to make a new decision or a new plan. And it's so much easier when you at least have something in place, even if you end up having to deviate from that. Like having a really rigorous shot list. You might not get all of those things, or you might have to change your plan, or something, might not work out. Something might break. The door moves the other direction. Like,
right.
who knows?
Or more like it probably will break. Like,
right.
Things are going to go wrong, right?
I just think it's good to have decisions in place already made, so that, if you are in a highly emotional situation, that at least you have something, like a baseline decision.
Something to fall back on.
A
fallback
fallback
plan.
or a plan A, so at least you have something in place.
How many plans deep did you get, do you think?
Well, my brain is full of plans. It's and I how much I think about things, and I do like a lot of really applied thinking too, like the drawing and the lists. I drew I became obsessed with one point at the locations not matching up in terms of the angle of the sun at the time of day that we were suggesting we were in. This, completely obsessional fixation I got. And I drew a very elaborate map of the world using the actual locations that we had. And like
where the sun would be.
And
at that time of day.
Yeah. And it really, like, having that map in my kit bag was dope. It was great. It really, like, I used it. It was helpful to me. And it just helped me stitch together. It really helped me make sure that I was shooting for the edit. And it worked. It was great. I wouldn't recommend that to everybody. It was a little, I lost like a good 3 days there. But that's okay.
But you were prepared.
Yeah, I was.
Dorie Barton, thank you so much for being on the Circle Take. Hey, Circle Take listeners, just want to let you know that if you like the movie, go ahead and head over to Rotten Tomatoes and give it a review. That's our show for today. The Circle Take is produced by Blue Apples Media. Our music is written and performed by Corey Fader Jacobs. Check him out at themasterfader.com. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, where there's always many more episodes to check out. You can like us on Facebook at The Circle Take. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at The Circle Take, where we post photos from our conversations, schedule updates, and previews of upcoming shows. And of course, all of this, the podcast links, clips, notes, and more, is all available on our website at thecircletake.com. Thanks for listening. I'm Jason Schmid, and you can circle that one.